What's going on, guys? Ready to get cracking on the next step, this whole Fox Body Finance. So today we're going to be talking about, how to set up a budget, and going to get into once again, a lot of the mental aspects of it. And, this is really like part of the foundation of being able to take those next steps and move up. So, let's just hop into it. So what's the purpose of a budget? Well, a budget is to basically control your flow of money. You've got money flowing in and flowing out. So, you have to look at it this way. Like, usually people that aren't doing well with money, it's like they make money and then it just flows right through their hands and it's gone. So, this is kind of the purpose of setting up a budget. Like, you have to set up a budget to accurately track what's coming in, and most importantly, what's going out and why it's going out. So, when we get into setting up a budget, it's pretty simple, guys. You don't need some fancy app. All you need is a blank sheet of paper and a pencil. So, you're just basically going to sit down. Most people, they get paid hourly. Most people have a pretty good understanding of how much money they're making every week. So, write down your income. And a lot of times, I'll base my budget on my pay period. So, if I get paid every week, I'm going to set up my budget based on how much is coming in each week. But, for the most part, you can pretty much just set your budget up around, basing it on a month. Because you figure most of your expenses are going to be incurred monthly. So, when you sit down to figure out your income, you can just, if you want to break it down week by week, you can do that. If you want to break it up with your pay periods, you can do that. If you want to break it down for the month, you can do that as well. I would recommend, though, if you're starting out and you're trying to get this whole budget thing going initially, your first step should be to budget based on a weekly basis. So, the point I'm trying to make there is, when you start doing your budget, you should be really hyperactive about it. You might even want to, sit down and go through it on a daily basis. It could be that involved to where you really need to sit down and look at what's going on every day. And as you get better at it, and as you gain experience and you build wealth and all that stuff, you could maintain that hypervigilance, but you are going to get to a point, I personally have gotten to a point where I don't need to sit here and, scrutinize everything. I know what's going on. I've got a general idea of what's up, so I don't have to sit here and, microanalyze everything. I still could if I wanted to be that vigilant about it, but, right now I've reached that level of comfort to where I've kind of dialed back how much effort I put into that. So, you're going to sit down, you're going to list your income, and then, this is the biggest part of this, is listing all your expenses. So, you're going to have your reoccurring expenses of, what you're paying for. Maybe you rent a place, you got to pay rent, you got to pay, maybe you've got a car payment, maybe you've got insurance payment. Start listing it out. And those are the easy things to kind of keep track of. And what's really going to make or break this budget for most people is going to boil down to those little things I stopped and got breakfast this morning. You have to start tracking that stuff. Every time a dollar comes out of your wallet, you need to keep track of it. So, that probably sounds ridiculous, but you'd be surprised how much money you spend on stuff that you probably shouldn't be spending it on. So, getting back to the, why you would want to go through your budget every day, this is a reason why, if you're going to sit down at the end of the day and kind of track, where did you spend your money, did you go out, and what you actually spent it on. So, this is pretty much where you're going to make or break it. Figuring out the expenses. And, in my opinion, it's a lot easier to reel in your expenses than it is to go out there and get a raise. So, that's something else. That's a whole different topic. There's a lot of people who don't believe in that or whatever, but for now, in my opinion, it's probably the path of least resistance too. Like, we want to maximize what you have right now, okay? Without, because some people are like, oh, well, there's people that they build explosive wealth. Yeah, that's great. I agree with that. I don't really focus on that because, like, I haven't been, I don't know, privy to that kind of success. So I'm gonna focus on what I've been successful with and what I understand. Yeah, there's people that build explosive wealth. There's different ways of going about it, but I still feel like even if you were to build explosive wealth, like, let's say you did something and a year from now you're a millionaire. That's great. You still need this. You still need this. Or you're gonna end up like the lottery winner we talked about in the last video. So this is important. Like, do not, like, most people that have money problems, they're overlooking, like, they think they have a budget. They're under the impression they have a budget and they don't. And they are spending money on things and they're not even, like, keeping track of it. So, perfect example, a few years ago, I worked with this younger guy. He's probably in his early 20s. And, you know, he was talking about wanting to get an Evo, this, that, and the other thing. And it just seemed like he was having financial issues. So, I mean, I got to the point where I sat down with him. I was like, you know, it's none of my business, but if you want to talk about money, you know, we'll sit down and talk. He was like, yeah, that's cool. You know, he was comfortable with it. So, you know, we sat down. I talked to him about setting up a budget, you know, and yeah, it was like, it got to the point where every month we would sit down, we'd go through his budget, and I mean, this guy was basically eating his paycheck. So, I mean, he was paying his bills and everything, but at the end of the day, like, the amount of money he spent on going out and eating and all that, it was just stupefying. And, like, he's one of these guys, it was hard to get to him. It was hard to reach him because it was, like, every month. I mean, after, like, month number 6, it was like, dude, you're eating your paycheck. Like, you have to stop that. And, like, he could just not come to terms with that. So, that goes back to the mentality of this stuff, too, guys. Like, you have to decide you want to make a change. And sometimes making a change means, you know, you're not going to eat out every day. You know, I mean, for me personally, I got to a point where I was trying so hard to budget my money and make certain moves with money that, like, I literally ate 2 things for lunch. I would bring applesauce and yogurt. That was it. I did that for 3 years, okay? I did not go out to eat. Every day, I sat down and ate my yogurt and my applesauce. And, you know, I'm not saying that, like, people should do that. That's probably not good from a health standpoint either, but it was, like, you know, the lowest cost food that I could tolerate eating, and that was the path that I chose to take. And now, you know, I made that sacrifice, so now if I want to go out, if I'm like, hey, I want to go to Giordano's for lunch and, you know, get whatever, pizza or whatever, like, I can go do that. You know, I had the financial means to do that because I spent 3 years eating applesauce to get there. So, I mean, that's kind of like a little backstory on it, but you have to be willing to make the sacrifices, man. Like, you can't just wake up and go through the motions and not put the effort in. You know, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to pick and choose. And, you know, a lot of times you're not going to like the choices. But, I mean, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's all going to make sense. You know, it's all going to be worth the effort and the sacrifice later on down the road. So, probably one of the biggest things, and I talked about this before, we get into this whole concept of paying yourself first. So what does that mean? Well, paying yourself first is basically paying yourself first. Like, when you get paid, you need to take a part of that money and pay yourself. Before you pay the bills, before you go out and buy anything, you have to pay yourself first. And like I said, this is kind of a blanket statement. You hear this a lot, but I'm telling you, this is important. This has the power to completely change your life. Okay? Like, no joke. So, just recently, probably, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, I heard, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he came up with another good one that I threw on here just for good measure. But he talks about, you know, if you're paid hourly, to save 1 hour of your pay every day. So, I mean, that's pretty easy. You know, think about that. So, as we get into setting up this budget, this is why you're budgeting. Like, you want to find your expenses, get them under control, and start saving. Okay? We have to shift from spending a lot of money to figuring out how to save it. So, kind of getting into, like, making money and all that, too. You know, be grateful for what you have and what you get. You know, always be grateful for that. Like, anytime I get a paycheck, I would actually stop and like take the time to think about what it took to earn that money and appreciate it. Be grateful for what you have. And I think that's important. Like, stop and think about everything you went through to earn that money. Like, don't just take that paycheck and then run off to the bar and drink it away. Think about what it took to earn that money. Okay? Put that into perspective. And then ask yourself, like, do I want to work this hard for money? Like, is this something I want to do? This goes back to sacrifice. You know, there were years of my life where I really spent a lot of time working hard to acquire money. And as I acquired that money and managed it properly, I shifted that money into working for me. So, like today, the stock market was up probably like 200 points. I mean, I'm sitting here at a park and I'm making money in my investments. So, think about how powerful that is. You know, you can get to the point where you save enough money, you put it in the right investments, and you're going to be making money sitting at a park doing nothing. So, I guess that's kind of the question you have to answer for yourself. Like, for me, it was like, am I willing to eat yogurt and applesauce so that someday I can literally just sit here and make money pretty much doing nothing? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was definitely a shot that was worth taking. So, that was a path I headed down. And at this point in time, you know, like I said, I'm not a millionaire, but at the same time, I guarantee you I'm making money right now and I'm not working. So, kind of getting back into the whole getting paid aspect too, like, I feel like this new thing, you got these people getting into, you know, the way they're paid as like a direct deposit. So, I mean, are you getting physical money? Are you going to the bank and cashing a check and like taking out physical money? Or are you getting a direct deposit? You know, I feel like there's a mental aspect to that as well. Like, the difference between physically holding your money, I think, has a different effect on you mentally and provides more value than just getting some direct deposit and then, you know, you just spend it out of your debit card or however you go about handling it. But it's like you never physically touch that money. And it's easy to separate yourself. It's like a disconnection of you and your relationship with money. So, kind of be aware of that too. Like, I feel like that makes it easier for people to take for granted what they have achieved or the power of that money. It almost like takes away from how powerful that money can be. And that's kind of the next thing going along with that same concept is talking about like how you make your payments too. Like, do you sit down and physically write a check, or do you go online and just click the pay the bill button? You know, once again, that's fine. If you're paying online, that's fine. You know, if you're writing checks, I guess that's antiquated, whatever. I mean, I personally, that's still what I do. I like to actually physically engage in where the money's going. And I mean, that could change. I mean, next year I could do everything online. Who knows? But I mean, at this point in time, I personally want to have that physical connection of, you know, writing my checks out. I feel like I need that. So think about that too. Like, don't get so disconnected from money that you lose sight of how powerful it is. So, the other concept getting into is like, you know, how important saving is. So I figured I'd just kind of list out like, you know, what savings really mean to you in the long run. You know, savings basically represents safety. You know, if you have money saved up and you get fired, you have a safety net. You have money to pay the bills or whatever to feed yourself until you find another job. That's having a safety net. You know, savings equals progress. Like I mentioned in another video. Like, are we making progress, or are we just going through the motions? You know, what are you doing? Are you making progress, or are you going through the motions? Because savings is progress. Savings is also choice. You know, for me personally, I chose to wake up and come here and make a video because I have money saved. Now, if I didn't, I might not have that choice to make. So, having money saved up definitely opens your horizons as far as choice is concerned. Savings also equals freedom. You know, once you acquire wealth or savings, it puts you in a situation where you have the freedom to make these different choices. You know, And, you know, as I mentioned in a previous video, for me personally, that's more important than anything. Like, my personal freedom is what I really value the most. Like, I value my personal freedom above buying some fancy new car. It just means more to me. And the other aspect of it is, you know, savings can reduce your stress level, and that's going to make you pretty much by default a healthier person. I mean, stress can really destroy you physically and mentally. So, you know, pay your bills, or do you want to be in a situation where, like, literally every month you're just beating yourself up because you don't know how you're going to pay the bills? I mean, to me, that's like the worst case scenario. I mean, anyone to be in a situation like that, I mean, that's pretty terrible. And I mean, that's the point of making these videos too. Like, if you're one of those people, then, you know, I want to help you fix that. Like, you don't have to live like that. And you can choose a different path. Like, you have to choose that you want to be able to wake up and pay your bills every month and not have to worry about it. So, you know, let's make the better choices, shift towards saving. So, kind of getting deeper into the budget concept, like, in my opinion, you want to budget hard to make saving easy. So the harder you are on that budget and figuring out, like, you know, what your expenses are, you know, what you need, what you don't need, where you can make cuts, what kind of sacrifices you can make, you know, and for some people, like, maybe that means downsizing. Maybe that means, you know, maybe you should sell your car. I mean, you got to start really analyzing where your money's going, you know? It's like, well, I mean, I've known people that have done that. It's like, some people, sometimes they downsize their house. I mean, those are big steps to make, but, you know, once again, it goes back to sacrifice. It goes back to ego. You know, you got people that have a big ego over having a big house. It's like, well, it's also a big payment, you know? So if you're willing to make the big payment, then that's fine. But there's some people that realize, like, man, if I had a lower car payment, or if I didn't have as big of a mortgage, I'd be able to save a lot more money. And then they go about and make the steps to change that. So, like I said, budget hard to make saving easy. Well, there's something I'm just going to bring up real quick that's coming down the road. You know, in my opinion, budgets and credit cards belong together. And we're going to get pretty far into credit cards. And, I mean, to me, I love credit cards. They're one of my most powerful financial weapons. But, kind of like any weapon, you know, it can either be used to help you or it can be used against you. And for most people, a credit card is being used against them. But there's a lot we can learn about credit cards. There's some amazing advantages, safety nets, access to money. I mean, tremendous benefits, even down to, like, you know, some of these credit cards offer certain perks. And, I mean, like, if you'd seen my other video with the cash back, you know, I mean, some of these credit cards, you're literally just getting paid to use them. So, we're going to get into credit cards. I just want to bring that up because I want you guys to start thinking about credit cards. Like, if you have that mentality where, like, credit cards are bad, I want you to start thinking about that. Like, we have to change your mindset about credit cards because they're not bad. Don't believe what everybody's told you. You know, anything can be bad if it's used incorrectly, but I'm going to show you how to use a credit card the right way and play it out to your advantage. So, one of the most important aspects of setting up that budget is what I call your number. Okay? So your number is the amount of money you need to pay all of your expenses. So, when I was hyperactive about my budget, I had a number that I knew I had to hit. So back then I was getting paid every week. And I knew that I needed to make, I think it was like $500 a week or something like that. It's like I had to make $500 of take-home pay to meet all of my needs. So anything above that number was pretty much fair game for, you know, saving or investing, or if I wanted to spend it, you know, whatever kind of spending I wanted to do. Which at that point in time I was really just saving and reducing debt. So, you know, you have to establish your number. And this is going to make it a lot easier for you to budget as well. Because once you start coming up with rock solid numbers, you're not going to be playing this guessing game. And you shouldn't be playing a guessing game. You should know. You should know how much money is going to be coming in. and have a pretty solid idea of what's going out. And this kind of also goes back to savings too, because people be like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know, like, what if my washing machine breaks and I need to buy one? It's like, well, that goes back to savings, you know. When you establish a savings account and you have a certain amount of money in that account, you're going to be able to cover those expenses. Or, kind of going back to credit cards, maybe we're going to use a credit card. Or technically use both. Maybe we're going to use a credit card and then pay that card off with savings after we obtain some of the benefits of that credit card. So, you have to sit down and figure out what your number is, and that's going to make it a lot easier to budget. So, like I said, your number is the amount of money you need to pay all of your expenses for that month. So, kind of going back to that again, any money earned beyond your number can be saved. And think about that. You want to start saving. Like, I keep seeing these comments where people are saying, oh, you know, I have a hard time saving. It's like, no, you don't. You just don't know how. Like, don't tell me you have a hard time saving, because you probably just don't know how to. You know, I mean, I'd have a hard time playing baseball if no one ever taught me how to, right? And that goes for anything. Like, I wouldn't know how to drive stick if I never learned how to do it. So, if I don't know how to drive stick, yeah, driving the stick is hard for me. But I learned how to drive a stick shift vehicle, so now I know how to do it. So, think about that. Any money earned beyond your number can be saved. So, kind of getting into, you know, why are we saving? Well, saving is a gateway to investing. So, the next step of that is, investing is the gateway to wealth building. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. You know, if you get to a certain level with money and you're making money off of investments, or you have some type of passive income, or you've developed multiple streams of income, you know, these are things we'll talk about later on, but once you get into investing, that's literally your gateway to wealth building. It's probably one of the most powerful tools to build your wealth with. Probably one of the easiest, most passive, powerful tools for building wealth over time. And quite honestly, like, this whole investing thing, like, you guys also have to understand, like, you're going to have to do this anyways, okay? It's kind of funny because people, they make this separation between these concepts of money and then retiring. Like, if you understand how a 401k works or an IRA, like, you know, that's how you're going to retire. You have to save money. That money goes into an investment. Those investments have a return over time, and that's what you're going to end up using to retire. So, think about that. Like, this is technically something you have to do anyways. So, don't have this big mental roadblock like, oh, I can't invest, or it's too hard, or I don't understand that. It's like, look, it's not hard. It's super easy. As a matter of fact, once you sit down and learn how to do investing and be like, wow, that was so stupid easy. I wish I had, you know, if you're an older guy, you're going to be like, I wish I knew that years ago. And there's some of you, you probably have a retirement account. You've been doing this for years and you just don't realize it. So, once again, it goes back to your mindset. You know, some of you guys are going to walk away from this video and be like, man, I've already got, like, a pretty decent savings setup going on right now, and, like, I didn't even really realize it. So, once again, it just boils down to your mindset and how you're looking at things, you know, how you're viewing your personal situation. All right, so kind of tying all this budget stuff together, I got a little homework for you guys, and I'm sure I'll find a link and link it somewhere. But if the link's not up yet, you can just YouTube search The Coming Collapse of the Middle Class with Elizabeth Warren. This is a great video. It starts out kind of slow, but I really urge everyone to take the time to watch that whole video, and maybe a week or two later actually watch it again. It's a great video. She makes some really great points that are going to come right back into you trying to set up a budget. She touches on what some of the biggest expenses for your average American family are. I know I found the presentation to be a little shocking. It was eye-opening, and it definitely helped me out, like changing my thought process and getting my budget straightened out too. So definitely take the time. and watch that video. I know it's probably going to be painful for some of you guys, but you just gotta truck through it, man. You can do it. But yeah, Elizabeth Warren, check out that video. So beyond all that, what's the takeaway here? You guys, you got to create a budget so you can control your expenses and start saving. Super simple, super easy. Like I said, you don't need some kind of app. You don't need the newest, greatest smartphone. Like, you can do this with a piece of paper and a pencil. You know, sit down, start going through your expenses, and start figuring it out. And this, you know, this could take a while. There's gonna be a certain evolution to this as well. You know, the first budget you set up is gonna be a lot different than the fifth budget you sit down and try to figure out. You know, and it's like over time, it's gonna have an evolution to it. So, like I said, you know, you gotta sit down, take the time, figure out your expenses, figure out how your money's flowing, so we can start shifting money into savings. And that's really going to be the next step. Like, once we establish the savings and get that straightened out, we're going to talk about savings and safety nets and kind of getting into insurance and protecting yourself. And eventually we're going to work our way into investments. And like I said, like some of you guys, like, you probably have investments and you don't even realize it. You know, if you have a 401k through your work or whatever the case may be. But so like I said, check out Elizabeth Warren. Sit down tonight, go through your budget, or whenever you get time, take the time, sit down, start working through it, start crunching some numbers, calculate your number, and find out what it actually costs you to operate for 1 month. You know, to me, I always make this comment to people, and it's very true. Like, I consider myself to be a business owner. Like, I own the business of Frank. Like, I have to wake up and I have to turn a profit every day. You know, I've got bills that I have to pay. I have certain obligations that I have to meet. So I'm running the business of Frank. Like, I run my personal finances like it's a business, because it is. It is a business to me. And it's just a different way of thinking about things. So, you know, and kind of falling into the business aspect, you know, that's what makes everybody different too. Like, you know, my business is just me. I'm not married. I don't have kids. You know, I don't have certain things that I have to be responsible for. So my budget is going to be different than, you know, someone who's in a different age bracket or a different situation in life, whether they're married, maybe they have kids, maybe they're divorced. If you're a homeowner, if you're a renter, if you have a car payment, if you don't, you know, all of these things are going to have effects on how effective you can be at saving money and doing those types of things and engaging in wealth building. So, I mean, I'm going to try to cover all those topics. You know, like I said, me personally, I don't have the most, I don't know, personal experience with, I mean, I've never been married. I can't give you, like, you know, my tips on marriage, but, you know, we'll talk about some of the concerns that go into some of that stuff and the cost of kids and all that. And actually, some of that stuff is actually covered in the Elizabeth Warren video. So that's pretty much where this is headed for now. So like I said, watch the video, sit down and do your budget. As always, give me the thumbs up, leave your comment. Let me know, you know, when you guys get done with your budget, hop back on here and just leave a comment. Be like, yeah, I got my budget done, you know. We'll give you a thumbs up. You know, hey guys, you see other comments on there? You see somebody left a comment that they got their budget set up? Give them a thumbs up, man. Give them that pat on the back, you know. That's what we're here to do, help each other out. So, alright guys, I hope that's been helpful. And get to work, man. I'll see you guys in the next one.